Morning, everyone. I have some really great news for you. No slides, not a one. I'm not a big fan of using slides, so instead you're going to get to listen to me talk for the next 25 minutes or so, and we're going to have some fun talking about 4 very interesting technologies. So my last name, Schukai, means to search in Polish, from what I gather. And if you're looking to search about 4 amazing things that are going to change the way you work and you operate as a startup, as a business in the future, look no further than this session. The 4 technologies that we're going to talk about today include the following: cloud computing, blockchain, cognitive computing, and user experience. It's hard to believe that 10 years ago, just 10 years ago, the Apple iPhone launched. 10 years ago. 15 years ago, 3rd generation mobile technology was just coming out on the marketplace. And the way we operated was that we thought to build a business, we had to go out and buy a bunch of servers and a bunch of software and find a data center to run this stuff for us. And it took a long time for us to bring a brand new business to market. But over the last few years, as the 120 plus startups know that are sitting outside these 4 walls, cloud computing has changed all that. Because with cloud computing, this is all we need: an Amex card. We can swipe an Amex card and within minutes have the compute power to establish a business straight away. Big businesses like mine, Thomson Reuters, have to react to those 120 startups outside and the thousands and even millions around the world, conceived by 3, 4, 5 people in a garage in San Francisco, working on the beach at the new Starbucks pop-up in Sopot, or somewhere in Stockholm, Johannesburg, anywhere in the world. Because the price of compute and the ability to set up a business has been completely leveled by the nature of cloud computing. Your ability to stand up as much compute power, as much memory, and as much capability as you need to run and build a business. And that's a pretty tremendous ability we all have today. Cloud compute is going to continue to change the way all of us work in businesses. And it's going to be very exciting to see how the next generation of products and services come to market in such a quick time because of that. So let's talk about the second key technology. I've worked in tech for a long time, and in fact, before I started this digital identity initiative, I led our applied innovation group. And our mission was to look out into the future to determine what technologies were going to have the biggest impact on our businesses going forward. And a couple of years ago, we started paying attention to this thing called blockchain, which today is probably the most hyped technology on the planet. Blockchain, it can cure cancer, solve world hunger, do everything. Well, that's not quite the case. But it is the underlying technology behind one of the most powerful cryptocurrencies that we know today, called Bitcoin. And it's worth asking the question, because I usually do this anyway, how many people in the audience use Bitcoin? Thank God, I finally come to an audience where there's more than one person. Because I'll go and I'll speak to our customers, the big banks, finance industry, and I'm lucky if I see one person in the audience. Blockchain has the power to revolutionize so much about how transactions are conducted in the future. And a very simple way to describe it is this. If we think about today, the nature of the relationship each of us have with a bank, it's a pretty simple thing to understand. You bank with somebody, that bank keeps a common ledger of your accounts, your checking account, your savings account, maybe money that you're putting away for retirement. You own that relationship with the bank and that bank alone. And then what happens? Some smart people, nefarious people go in and hack your bank, and suddenly your funds are drained. Your identity is stolen. And if you're lucky, like we are in the United States, up to a point, you will have the bank reimburse you, and they'll put that money back in, but it takes time and it's painful. Now imagine a system where instead of a single ownership, a single ledger, multiple people owned a copy of your record. Not the exact numbers, but a cryptographic representation of what's in your bank account, where the only two people that had the keys to it were you and your actual bank you operate with. But that cryptographic number was spread out. We call that distributed ledger technology. And that's the power of where we start with the blockchain. Because by distributing the information to multiple places, we don't rely on one single point of failure. And in distributed ledger technology, the way we make that work is to have essentially what we call a 50% plus one voting agreement before we let transactions take place. So imagine that there are 10 copies of your information out there. Before a transaction could take place, 6 of them would have to agree that the transaction was valid before it could happen. Now, that's kind of the fundamental nature of what we call distributed ledger technology. But if we couple on to that the nature of what blockchain is all about, blockchain actually takes those transactions and stores them in a cryptographic solution where each record is linked to the previous record. Think of it as the world's biggest conga line dancing, where you're holding on to that next person, and the next person's in front of you, etc. And the only way you can go back and change the record back here is to also change everything that's transpired up to that point in time. So the beauty of blockchain is twofold then. One, it's transparency. That's the case of every Bitcoin transaction that takes place. It's all out there. You can go to blockchain.info and see every single Bitcoin transaction that takes place. You can't see who's behind it, but you can see every transaction. The other value is that you create immutability, meaning it can't be hacked, it can't be changed, because the compute power we have today doesn't allow us to go back and rewrite the entire chain. So once something is written, it's written in there and it's solid. And where might we use such a capability? Well, a great example is in identity, as we talked about with the introduction. There's an amazing stat that 1.5 billion people in the world have no legal digital identity to speak of. Nothing. These are the refugees coming in from Syria, from places in Africa, where they perhaps have been trafficked, where people have brought them and thrown away any identity papers they may have. People that are born without birth certificates, without records. Imagine if we could create a system to produce a legal digital identity based on a blockchain that was immutable and transparent, so that these people would be able to take part in global transactions, services, and movement all around the world. So that's blockchain. The third is one of the most exciting areas that I can think of: cognitive computing. And cognitive computing consists really of three technologies that have come together: machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the human-computer interface. Machine learning, what's that? Well, if we think about this whole thing around cognitive computing and artificial intelligence, it's much like when we were kids at school. Machines are stupid, just like people. We go to school, and what do? We go to school to learn. That's what machine learning is about. We teach the machines how to understand the nature of human language. A few years ago, IBM Watson played a game called Jeopardy, and you might have seen this on the web. And essentially what IBM and Watson did was read all of Wikipedia. Got really smart at Wikipedia to answer general knowledge and trivia questions, and it beat the Jeopardy champion. We've seen this take place with DeepMind from Google playing the game Go, a game that has its origins in the Far East and is traditionally one of the hardest games to understand because there's so many potential moves that anybody could make. So machine learning is all about us providing information in a structured way that they can understand so that we can glean information out of big data. Because there's a whole lot of information out there in big data, right? But the problem is we don't care about all that information. We just care about the bits that are important to us. And so that's why we teach machines the specifics of language around legal or tax or finance or whatever it happens to be, medicine, as a method for them to make connections. So machine learning, that's the first piece of cognitive computing. The second piece is what we call artificial intelligence. So just like when we were kids, we went to school and we learned things, just because we learned it doesn't mean we understand it. In fact, we're still pretty stupid. I learned a lot of things in school that I never really understood. Artificial intelligence takes the next step, where we attempt to have machines actually start to use the kind of thinking processes that humans have to make connections, to ask questions. And in fact, that's the exciting thing about the whole Internet of Things taking place, where in the next 5 to 8 years, we'll see some 30 billion devices connect to the Internet. So machines not only will talk to people in the information we feed them, but they'll talk to other machines to learn, to understand, to reason, and to help make decisions much quicker. That's the exciting part about artificial intelligence. And I promise that they're not going to get smarter than us anytime soon. And for the people that worry about the machines taking over the world, I always tell them this: pull the plug. Machines don't go very far without electricity. So artificial intelligence is going to be one of the biggest game changers of our entire existence. And we're starting to see those elements of artificial intelligence today. Years ago, many of us probably watched 2001: A Space Odyssey. And we saw Hal talk to Dave and say, "I can't do that, Dave," in that really low, weird voice of his. Well, machines have started to get very, very smart. And we're starting to experience the power of artificial intelligence machines today. Because when I travel, I like to travel with friends. And I'm actually really lucky. So I've gotten to Poland a lot. This time I'm actually traveling with my son, who's here in Poland for the first time, getting to see his dad on stage. But I also bring some machines with me. And I brought a friend here to demonstrate sort of the power of the machine. Hey, Google, Can you say hello in Polish?
Cześć.
Okay, Google. Say good morning in Polish.
Dzień dobry.
Google's pretty smart. The exciting thing about artificial intelligence and cognitive computing is in the human-machine interface. And that's the piece that we don't want to lose in the user experience. Most of the people in this audience are technical, and we do amazing things as technologists. We also do some really stupid things as technologists. And the stupid thing we do is we forget that as cool as all of this technology is, blockchain, artificial intelligence, the cloud, none of it means a thing if we can't figure out a way to make technology relevant to people. That's the user interface experience. That's the human-computer interface. It's the last piece of the cognitive computing puzzle, and it's the last piece of technology that we'll spend the next few minutes on wrapping up. User interface is so critical. Today, we use our phones in exciting ways. We talk to them. We ask them things. We ask Siri to find directions for us. We talk to the Amazon Echo, and it orders dollhouses for us on television. These are doing incredibly powerful things. In the case of Google Home here, I can just speak sort of really, really regular. I can just say, hey, Google, play BBC Radio 6 for me.
Sorry, something went wrong. Try again in a few seconds.
And she's not that smart. Hey, Google, what time is it back home?
Sorry, I'm not sure how to help with that.
Boy, you're not doing so good for me today, Google. Hey, Google, can you play Reuters News?
Something went wrong.
Shh. I'm done. I give up. See, the machines let us down, right? So let me talk about user interface and the importance of it. There's a great game that I play with audiences all the time. And in fact, do you think we could bring some microphones up real quick to play this game? Real fast. Can my runners pop up for a second with microphones? This is where the audience has to do a little bit of work. Just hop out in the audience here. So there's this guy sitting right here. Sir, can I ask you a quick question? Can you tell me your favorite app and why? Stand up and turn around and tell the audience your favorite app and why. As she gets ready to turn it on here. Or not. I'll tell you what, you want to come up?
1, 2.
There we go.
Thanks. So
Yeah, stand up and tell the audience. Stand up and tell the audience. What's your favorite app and why?
Well, it's a hard question.
Pick
Uber. I like Uber.
Which one?
Uber.
Uber. Why do you like Uber?
It's cheaper than taxi.
Cheap and inexpensive. That's awesome. Right here, front row. This lovely young lady. Yeah, Domi, I had to pick on you. Sorry. Stand up, face the audience.
So I would say Spotify.
Because?
Because I love music and I can have it every time with me on my phone.
She loves Spotify, music and the phone. All right, one more. Anybody else want to give me their favorite app and why? You, sir. Stand up so the audience can see you.
Actually, it's SimilarWeb, which helps me to identify the business clients.
What's the name of it?
SimilarWeb.
Okay.
So I think it's a great app, and they don't have any competitors on the market currently.
Okay.
So,
what is the similarity between all these apps? You got SimilarWeb, you got Spotify, you got Uber. What's that? Yeah, they're useful. What else? Yeah. I get a million answers to this question all the time. A million answers. They're connected, they're free, they're easy, they're fun. But there's one answer I look for that I never get. And this is maybe the most important thing for all of us to remember in products we create. When anybody talks about their favorite app, guess what they do? They smile. Why do they smile? Because that app has created some sort of emotional connection between the user and the product. And that's what's happening today with these technologies. When we talk to Siri or we talk to Google, even when she doesn't give me the answer, she's still pretty darn polite. We smile at how this technology works. It wows us. It impresses us. It blows us away because it's doing things we can't even imagine. When you think about it, the technology is mind-blowing. The fact that I can talk to some box and ask it how to say good morning in Polish, and it knows how to do that. Think about all the stuff that has to take place to make that happen. And that's why it's so critical for us never to forget that every single thing we create has to be used by people. People are not robots. We may not like lawyers. We may have our own particular part of the world we're not big fans of. But guess what? Everybody uses apps. Everybody uses products. And that's why you have to build things that are compelling to people. Compelling for them to use, to experience, to create that emotional bond. That's the piece that's going to someday revolutionize, in my mind, artificial intelligence and the human being. Because those experiences are going to meld together, and it's going to become second nature for us in the way we speak to people, that will speak to machines, that will speak to robots. So I'd like to conclude by just wrapping up and saying once again, 4 amazing technologies that you need to have on your radar, that if you're not working in today, you will be working in the next 5 years. You will be in the cloud. There is no question in my mind. And it doesn't matter if you're a startup or a big company, you will be in the cloud. Blockchain. It may be hyped, it may be oversold, but I guarantee the powerful use cases it can create around transparency and immutability will bring a lot of benefits to people all around the world, whether it's in the identity of people or the identity of things, in future banking, future money movements. 3, cognitive computing. The hottest thing going right now, consisting of machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the human-computer experience. And user experience, of course, which is last but not least. Remembering at the end of the day, any technology that we talk about is absolutely irrelevant to 99% of the people out on the planet. It's not until we make it personal, relevant, and build that emotional connection that we've achieved what we want to achieve by making it meaningful to all. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to any questions you might have. Thanks.
Thank you, Bob. A new big 4 we can hunt for.
Absolutely.
Hard to imagine that there are no questions. So please raise your hand.
Thanks. Thank you for a great talk, first of all. And I'm really curious. I mean, you mentioned these 4 things that are going to be taking over technology in the future. Thinking of the human side of this, what do we need to learn? How can we prepare our younger generations or our new generations of not only technology people, but in general, to learn how to live with these four technologies? Or I mean, I don't know if you understand. It's just,
Yeah, no,
how do we prepare for this?
So the funny thing is we're already watching it happen today, right? When we see kids, 2-year-olds trying to swipe the television set because we've handed them an iPad at 18 months. Here's the single biggest thing that I think we're going to have to teach our kids is not just about technology, but about the ethics of how we use technology. That cannot be trivialized. And that's why I'm really pleased to see people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Eric Schmidt and other leading technologists talking about this very fact, discussing the implications that artificial intelligence, for example, could have in the future on all of our lives. So it's just as important that we know the technology is out there and doing things, but it's also extremely important to understand the ethics behind how it's used, because any technology, as we know, can be used both for good and for bad. And Bitcoin's a great example of that, right? It's a terrific way to move money very, very quickly from one person to another. But we also know that a lot of nefarious transactions take place under the anonymity that's provided by that service.
I wanted to ask, what's your opinion? Do voice-controlled interface have future or not? Because it's, as we've seen, it's not that much precise and it's not that fast. I mean, you can spell something and it will take your time.
I do think voice-controlled interfaces do have validity. So in vehicles today, we're seeing it. It's a good thing. I think it's useful to help prevent some of the distracted driving issues that take place. But it's not perfect. I mean, you saw the demo there, right? The demos go wrong. That's always the fun of trying something like this, but they work sometimes. But we also have to remember that, you know, there are different people out there that have different needs. A great example of this, a friend of mine named Ross Linnett in the UK has created a product for people that are dyslexic. So if you're dyslexic, voice is a much simpler interface to interact with computers than trying to type and trying to spell. You always have to remember that where we are today is not where we're going to be in 2 years or 5 years or 10 years. The power of technology and the power and the compute power we're going to have is going to make those delays continue to shrink. And the recognition algorithms themselves are getting better and better and better. They're actually getting close to a point of what we would almost call natural human experience, where, you know, humans don't always catch things all the time. We're only within a couple of percentage points of hitting that from a raw technology standpoint.
Bob, thank you very much for sharing your intelligence with us, which was not artificial.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Big applause.
Thanks.